Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Gloria Lara, and I'm the Executive Director of Lakeshore Ethnic Diversity Alliance, otherwise known as LEDA for short. We started these conversations back last June after George Floyd's death, and we quickly realized that a lot of people needed to hear different stories and learn about different points of view, but also people who on the surface may look different from us, but inside we're all the same. So it's been a real treat for me to try and find people and speak with them and bring them on. And today I'm really excited to bring on Kendra McNeil. So hi, Kendra.
Hi, how are
So
you?
good. Thanks for being on. So Kendra is has her own business and from We Are Lit. We're going to talk about that. But one of the things which I really love about Kendra is that she is a reader, and I grew up, was called a bookworm. So it was so nice to really find someone and talk to someone who address some of the issues that I was having when I was raising my daughter, and I was looking for books that had characters in it that looked like her. Since my daughter is biracial, Latina, and Black, not many kids' books had characters that looked like hers. So that was sort of how I started seeking out um, businesses like that. And also, I'm a huge believer in economic opportunity and also in ensuring that minority owned businesses are able to be heard. And so that's the other reason why I was so excited to have Kendra on. So, Kendra, you sent me a bio, which I have to click on, and you are the founder, I like this, founder, curator, and
Yes.
owner of We Are Lit. And your work focuses on creating a culture around books and developing programs around long-term community-based literacy initiatives. So let's talk about that a little bit. But first, can you just share a little bit about yourself growing up and your love of books?
Yeah. Yeah. So first, I just want to say thank you for having me. It is a pleasure to talk with you today and to the audience. So I am Kendra McNeil, and I am owner of We Are Lit, which launched 3 years ago in 2017. I currently reside in Grand Rapids, but I am originally from the Chicagolands area. I've been in West Michigan for 12 years now. And to your question about my, journey into book selling and just my own, love for books, I've always been an avid reader. I have always been a patron of bookstores and libraries. Spent a lot of my childhood walking to our local library in Bolingbrook, Illinois, which is where I am from. And it just kind of trickled over into adulthood, if you will. And in 2017, I decided to take all the inspiration that I had from just books and visiting bookstores and launch something of my own.
I was on mute. So thank you. We talked a little bit about, I think when you were like 15, you were looking for certain kinds of books. Can you tell us about that epiphany that you had?
Yeah, so I shared that I've always been an avid reader from, I don't even recall a time like not knowing how to read, but I did not grow up with diverse books. And so while I had access to all the books a bibliophile could want, I didn't have access to diverse books. And so it wasn't until I was 15, so I was a sophomore in high school, and one of my childhood friends, her mom was an avid reader and had a pretty extensive book collection of Black authors. And so my first introduction to work written by Black writers was, browsing my friend, her mom's bookshelf. And there wasn't young adult like there is now, where there's, teen appropriate books. I was reading Terry McMillan and Bebe Campbell Moore and Mary Morrison. So reading some pretty, adult real life stories during my teenage years. And so really that was my gateway to discover.
Okay. So you froze a little bit, so you'll catch up in a second. Okay.
Okay.
Great. And so, but also, I mean, which is interesting because nowadays there's, I think, books, diverse books for all kinds of audiences at all ages. Now we can talk about that a little bit more later on, if you like. But I wanted to sort of focus chronologically on your journey. Then you started focusing on books as helping with social justice issues. So
I wouldn't quite say there was a focus on social justice issues per se. I think as a reader, personally, I lean towards books that centered on history and social science and helping to navigate the current political climate. And in the last few years, there's just been a lot of interest in those type of books. And so I feel as a bookseller that, part of my role is to be able to connect readers to their interest and, to be a resource, which historically, that's the role that bookstores have played as far back as the civil rights movement and things like that. Bookstores and booksellers just have always had that connection and helping people find the right reading material to navigate the social and political climate. Yeah.
Right. I mean, because I think some people think that the only kinds of books that Black authors or other BIPOC authors write is based more on social political issues. But let's talk about some of the different categories of books that it doesn't matter, what your background is, but people bring a unique perspective to that.
Yeah. So We Are Lit focuses on multicultural books across all genres. And so the collections in the bookshop are science fiction, romance, really any general interest. But what I try to do is bring stories told from diverse perspectives. And so when people visit We Are Lit, they really just browse by the genre that they're interested in. And the books that I tend to curate usually are written from a different cultural perspective. And so if someone is a romance fan, they can browse for romance books and, find work from Black authors, from the Latino community, from Asian, things like that. So I don't label my collections by race or ethnicity, but I try to curate books where the author is writing and sharing from a different cultural perspective.
And, when we chatted before, I listened to a lot of books on tapes because I don't have time to sit and read, but rather I'm driving all the time. And I decided to make a conscious effort to find books written from a different perspective than I'm used to. So I actually found some books by some authors from India, which is, pretty fascinating because it takes place here in the States and it's a lot of the same issues that we all have. And there's family issues and everything, but then, it puts in a bit of that cultural uniqueness that we talked about.
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah, it does. And one of my favorite collections to curate, I actually do it more so through my audiobook platform. I call it Around the World in Books. And so it is a fiction collection, but each of the books are set in a different locale around the world. So the story may take place in India or may take place in one of the African countries or somewhere in the West Indies. But it's across all genres. So it can be a mystery, a romance, but the story is set in a different location. And so that's one of my favorite collections to curate.
Well, especially nowadays when it's a bit more difficult to travel to all the different locations. Yeah. And I've started doing that consciously, and I find that I'm enjoying that, and I'm hoping that our listeners also get that experience as well, because I think it just sort of makes you realize that we still all have the same issues, concerns, hopes, and dreams. It just comes out differently. So you mentioned you keep mentioning your store, We Are Lit. Mm-hmm. What gave you the idea to start the business? I mean, I've been an entrepreneur before, so I know that's a pretty scary step to take.
Yeah. So I actually, I'm an avid traveler, and one of my favorite things to do when traveling is to seek out bookstores that have a multicultural focus. And so I actually never, like owning a bookshop or being a bookseller wasn't like a lifelong dream. It wasn't something that, that had been with me, like growing up or anything like that. But I just got really heavy into connecting with readers across different social platforms and doing book clubs. And I found that I was curating books. I was creating collections. I was helping others find books and giving book recommendations. And so I just decided that I would just take, my love for it and create something of my own. And when I started We Are Lit, it was online only. And then it kind of morphed into a pop-up bookshop where I was setting up at different venues and events around town. And then from there, I was able to open a little spot inside of the Grand Rapids African American Museum. And so throughout the journey, I just keep finding different loves. I do a lot with children's books now, which again wasn't something that was in my original plan, even when I launched the business. And so I think just the love for books and the connection that it brings to people and to community is really what just prompted me to go ahead and launch something. Yeah.
Well, that's great. So for people who are interested, the Grand Rapids African American Museum is on Monroe, correct?
Correct. Yep, 87 Monroe Center.
Yes. Yeah. So, and there's a nice parking structure in the back that you can park for free. I think it's still for 2 hours for free.
For 1 hour in the Monroe Center garage. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and that makes it really nice too. It's pre-COVID when, there was a lot of activity around restaurants and things like that and people were coming and going. But even now, even it's still nice to have that hour to be able to park. Yeah.
And for those of you not in the know, you can actually park in that parking structure and walk into the museum, the bookstore there, without ever having to go outside in the cold.
Yes, and I love that a lot when I'm doing inventory and lugging things around. I don't have to leave the structure to get into the museum. So that's nice.
Yeah, that's great. So when did you start your business? Was that 2017, you said?
Yeah, 2017. And it was kind of a whirlwind. I had connected with a woman here in town, Linda Otterbridge. She runs the Hook a Sister Up network, HASU. And we had just had like a sit down and just kind of chatting about ideas and things like that. And I was like, I think I want to open a bookstore. And she was like, well, do it. And that literally was like October 2017. And by November 17, I had formed We Are Lit as an LLC, started branding it, and I did my first pop-up that November. So from the time I kind of released from my lips that I wanted to open a bookshop, 30 days later, it was running.
Wow, that's a pretty fast launch.
Yes, yes. And there's been a lot of since I launched in 2017, and having a corporate business background, I had never worked in retail. And so it was like, oh, okay, well, I took the dive. Now I need to learn what I'm doing. And so I joined the American Bookseller Association, and that really put me on a good path for growth and growing the bookshop. And then I found a community of booksellers through a Facebook group that have been amazing. And so 3 years later, even though I'm the face of We Are Lit, I've had an amazing network within the book selling industry and in the business community in Grand Rapids that has really helped We Are Lit grow. Yeah,
which is great. So, and actually, I first became aware of you through one of our board members, LEDA's board members, for our silent auction. Got some gift certificates from We Are Lit. It's like, wow, this is great. I have no idea that you were here. I know. So, and then, so you started the business. You're online, and I'm running your website down underneath wearelitgr.com. So when someone goes onto your website, what can they expect to find? Are they able to only buy books that are by different people and cultures and all that?
And so, I'm glad you asked. So on wearelitgr.com, the books and the collections featured there are all curated and hand selected by me. But I am a general bookseller, and I do sell all books. And so I have a link that is at the top of the website that says "Ask Me About Books." And so if a customer is looking for something that I haven't curated, they really just send me a note with the author and the title, and I get it for them. And that is also one of the beauties of connecting with people, because a lot of We Are Lit's collection is built in real time. It'll be books that I discover, and then some of the titles on the website come from people responding to that Ask Me About Books link, or even just recommendations. So they can get my curated selections, or they can ask me about any book that they've seen somewhere. And if it's in publication, I can get it for them.
Oh, that's great. So was it difficult at first convincing people to support you and your business? And you froze a little bit again.
Oh, okay. Yep, I can see you just fine. Yeah.
So was it difficult convincing people? I mean, was there a time when you started We Are Lit and then you thought, oh, I don't know if I should have done this, and then, or was it always just, well, let's focus on this author or these types of books, or reaching out to these different groups of people? Because I know that we have some independent business owners, and they're always interested to hear how someone starts from an idea and then moves forward with that.
Yeah. No, I haven't. I think that when I first launched and I was online only, I think it was a little bit more difficult to connect with people that way. And then once I started bringing the bookshop offline and into the community through pop-ups and having face-to-face time with readers and people from the community and being able to share We Are Lit with them, things just kind of, fell into place and really took off. I don't, I guess I would have, some of the same angst that would come with just being a business owner in general. And most of We Are Lit's customer base just come from word of mouth. And so that has just really helped the bookshop grow. And so just, I guess whatever angst you would have as a business owner just really is really all I've encountered so far.
Yeah, no, that's normal.
Yes.
So a question which is, people wonder about, didn't they say, are you crazy starting being an independent bookseller during the, with Amazon around?
Yeah.
What made you think of that, and how is it possible that you can do that?
Yeah. Well, what I always say to that is like when people bring up that point, I just always say, well, that's not my market. I've always been a patron of independent bookstores. I seek them out. I appreciate the service and the value that they bring to book selling and the curating and things like that. And so, I felt that there's a whole community of people who are like me, and that, my job is to reach that market and to provide, a good book shopping experience. And I felt, like as long as I do that, then, it'll be okay. One of the bookshops that was around when I was growing up in Illinois, Anderson Books, I can't even tell you how old. And I'm like, bookstores, they've survived pre-Amazon, post-Amazon. I was out in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and I visited Marcus Books, which is the oldest African-American owned bookstore in the country, currently in operation. They are almost 70 years old. And, they've made it 70 years. So I'm just hoping for that type of longevity and for my customer base to stick with me for that long as well.
Well, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about children's books.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen a change in because I'm assuming that you do curate and offer a lot of different types of children's books. Can you spend some time talking about that, please?
Yeah, and so like I shared earlier, that when I first launched, children's books weren't my primary focus, and over time, it has become, and it's just such a great pleasure and joy to do. So with children's books, I like to curate books that are fun and vibrant, and that have stories that just show children doing ordinary things, just enjoying growing up. I like to curate books that help build character, things that are fun and mysterious. And so in my children's lit collection, I try to make sure that there are characters where a child can see themselves and also connect to the story. And I appreciate the question about children's book, because today is World Read Aloud Day. It's the 12th annual celebration of World Read Aloud Day. And there's a quote that talks about how a child becomes a lifelong reader. And part of that is allowing them to see themselves through fun, vibrant characters in a story. And so I give a lot of care to that with my children's lit collection, and take a whole lot of pride and fun things for for them to read.
Right. I mean, I could never find any characters in any young adult or children's books when I was growing up that looked like me, or that even came from, I was born in East Los Angeles, so that even came from that world. So yeah, I think, it must be really great for kids to see, open up a book and say, hey, this looks like me.
Yeah. And one of the things that I like to share is, like, in my own experience, like growing up, like I mentioned earlier, that I've always had access to books, but I didn't have access to books that had Black characters or had characters from other people of color. And so, but as a reader, I didn't know as a child that I was even missing something. I just read books that were interesting to me. And so now, because there is so much more availability of books that feature Black children and Latino children and Asian children, it's nice to be a part of a period of time where it will be somewhat normal for a generation of kids, where they're not a sophomore in high school and picking up a book that has a character of color for the first time. So it's definitely an interesting and well rewarding time to be a bookseller and to also curate children's books.
One of my favorite children's books, and it's pretty old now, I think, 20 years old or whatever, but I found it for my daughter, and I have a copy of it, and I didn't bring it with me, but it's called Everybody Eats Rice. And it has this little girl going around her neighborhood, which is multicultural, and everyone is making, all the moms are making rice for dinner, but in different ways, either from China or the Caribbean or Mexico, and starting to realize how, everyone does that, but their own unique way. Are there children's books that also focus on that as well?
Yes, I wish I should probably be quicker with titles, but I guess to that point, what I'll say is, one of my favorite children's books to share is How to Trick the Tooth Fairy. And in the book, the protagonist is a young Black girl, and she's just a trickster and is just mischievous. But one thing that the book shows is just the normal enjoyment of growing up and going through different phases of childhood. And so, to the point about the book that you shared, I think I try to find stories that are like that normalize children of color in just everyday activity, whether it be engaging in cultural activities or just, riding bikes or playing with friends in a neighborhood, climbing trees, that type of thing. So I try to gear my children's collection towards stories like that.
And that's great because kids can see themselves.
Yes.
You see kids doing things and they look like themselves. So
yes.
And so some of my Patricia Louise is putting up in the comments all the different books that she just wrote down. Favorite book of Kendra's, How to Trick the Tooth Fairy.
Yeah.
So is putting different websites on there, like for Marcus books as well. So
yeah,
great.
Yes.
So
you have to forgive me for my waving. My light in my office is on a timer, and since I've been stationary, it went off. So I was trying to move to make it to make the light come back on. So I hope that you can. I have a light in front of my computer, so I hope you can still see me okay. But I just wanted to apologize for all my movement.
No, you look good. It was just there was a difference in the light. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You can still see her. You're fine.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you move a little bit more to your right, perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. Yeah, because my logo is hiding half your face.
Okay.
So one of the things you heard me mention briefly is that I listen to a lot of books on tape, and there's I won't say the names. I'm trying not to advertise other organizations on right now, but there's this book of the audio book that I get credits every month, and so I don't know. I check my library and I have almost 300 audio books, and I thought, well, I really would like to support We Are Lit, but what am I going to do about my books on tape, my audio books? And I think you can talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so We Are Lit offers digital audio books through a platform called Libro.fm. And Libro is basically operates the same way that Audible, I said the elephant in the room, that Audible functions, except that Libro is for independent booksellers. So the founders of Libro, they're based in Seattle. They are, you can call them on the phone, they're real people. And they come from the book selling industry. And in response to independent bookstores not being able to compete any type of way or to be able to offer audiobook service to their customers who enjoy listening, that was how Libro originated. And so when people visit Libro.fm, they can subscribe to a membership where they get credits the same way that they would with any other platform. And they're DRM free. So you actually can keep your audiobooks even if you decide not to continue with the platform. And then you also, if you switch, you also get a few free credits to get you started as well. And so it's just phenomenal. They curate different collections and always have something going on in their blog, author talks, and things like that. And my customers love it. And it's just been incredible for the bookshop's growth to be able to offer audiobooks. So I definitely encourage everyone to check out Libro.fm. And one of the things I really love about it is that people can support an independent bookstore of their choice. So while I hope people choose We Are Lit, if they have another favorite bookstore that they love, they can do their audiobook subscription tied to that bookstore so that that bookstore gets, the credit and support for those sales. So it's just amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. And I think I'm going to take that banner off because you can barely see my face.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. And I believe you also mentioned book clubs. What type of services would you offer, like the book clubs?
Yeah, so I moderate 2 book clubs. So one of the book clubs that I moderate is Well Read Black Girl, to which I am a local ambassador. Well Read Black Girl is a book club and literary platform based in New York. And through my membership with the American Bookseller Association, the founder, Glory Edom, made it possible to bring her platform to independent bookstores nationwide. And so Well Read Black Girl is one of the book clubs that I moderate, and it is for Black women. And we read fiction and things like that. We get together for outings and events where we talk about books sometimes we just hang out. And then I also moderate another book club, which is Women Who Read Grand Rapids. And I'm actually the co-founder of Women Who Read. And that book club is open to any book lover who's a woman in West Michigan. And so before COVID, both of the book clubs met monthly. Now that, we're not gathering socially anymore, we last fall, we started doing online meetups. And so with Women Who Read, we pretty much read everything. Sometimes we're reading a nonfiction around women empowerment. We read sci-fi earlier last fall, and we do a lot of just talking and communicating about thoughts, about stories. And when we're not meeting, we network within a Facebook group. So, yeah.
Yeah, so no, that's great.
Yeah.
Because I remember when you and I were chatting earlier, I had said that I belonged to a book club when I used to live in the Detroit area. And there was one book that I hated.
Yeah.
And most of the women hated it. But someone said, yeah, but it got really great reviews and my husband really liked it. I said, well, it must be a guy thing because it was, I won't say the name of it because in case someone likes it. So
Yeah. Well, I think that is one of the amazing things. And I think that is one of the purposes of being in a book club is to share ideas and thought around a particular story and to offer different perspectives around the story. Sometimes our conversation in the book clubs that I moderate focus strictly on, the plot of the book, but sometimes it goes offline and it's more applicable to real life. And just, getting different perspectives is, I think, one of the intended outcomes of being in a book club.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, much better than having to write a book report and get up in front of your class and read it like I think we all had to do. So we're getting close to the end of our time, but I wanted to ask, what are your future plans for We Are Lit?
Yeah, so I hope to continue to, do the work that I'm doing around children's literature. I've had the opportunity to work with educators and business organizations in West Michigan to get diverse and multicultural books into the hands of children. And so I definitely want to continue to use my platform with We Are Lit to do that. And then beyond that, I hope to grow the physical bookshop at the museum and really just be able to provide a space for people to come and browse books and connect to their interests and to be a community resource. So I would say that those are my two future goals that are always in mind and that I'm always working toward.
Oh, great. Yeah, it's, I think bookstores, I could get lost in them. I try not to go into them because then I look at my watch, it's like, oh my gosh, I spent 2 hours in here.
Yes. Well, there's, just recently I started where people can browse some of my collections online and then go into the museum bookshop and just pick it up. So, so that's nice too, that, bookstores are, kind of trying to tailor to all lifestyles and make sure people who want books, to make it easier for them to be able, to get it. So if you're browsing, at 2:00 in the morning when you're awake, you can click a few buttons and then run and get it.
But not at 2 in the morning.
Yeah. Well, when the shop opens.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So Kendra, are there any parting thoughts that you would like to share with us?
I think I would just like to thank the West Michigan community for its support of We Are Lit and sharing the bookshop and their platforms and just really being a part of its growth and success.
Great. Thank you so much. So if you could hang around for just a couple of minutes afterwards and we'll finish up.
Okay, sure.
So thank you all for tuning in. You can tell I really like books a lot. And I read all types of books, but when my husband and I got married, turns out that we didn't have many duplicate books. He had science fiction and the fantasy part, and I had the more realistic science fiction plus I had a ton of biographies and he doesn't. So it was just, our books collection just expanded. So we ended up building bookcases 30 some years ago, and we still have them. So, so our next, meeting, which is what I like to call these, our next meeting, our next talk will be on February, and I don't have that right on my tip of my tongue, 2 weeks from today. That would be February 17th. And I am having an entrepreneur, a Latino entrepreneur who wrote a really fascinating app for agriculture. Please tune in and look for the information on our website as well as on YouTube. And as a reminder, all of these are available on our Facebook page as well as on our YouTube page. So thank you so much. Take care.